morning. It's 7 a.m. and I decided to take that Q&A session into like a more secluded location. So I'm just riding there and I'm just gonna sit down at the beach and then answer your questions. So see you in a bit. Okay, here we are, and there's gonna be a little bit of a wave noise because there's the sea right there. But I hope it's not gonna be breaking anything here. So yeah, let's start. All right, first question. What's one advice you would give to your younger self? And well, that one advice would be to work harder and be consistent, because that's like the main kind of basic path to success. If you want to be successful, you need to be consistent and you need to work a little bit harder, because it's not about talent, it's mostly hard work and dedication and just showing up every day. Alright, next question. James is asking, who are your top 3 designers you admire and has inspired you the most? Well, that's gonna be pretty easy. The first one is Diane, my wife, because she's just amazing at this, really. I mean, like, I'm mind blown every time I'm seeing her new design. So this is just a very clear number one. Then the second one I would say is Dieter Rams, because of all that minimalism and all that less is more mantra, which is something that I try to follow myself as well. And I really love most of his designs. I have his record player and it's one of my most beloved possessions. And the third one is gonna be a little bit less popular. It's Andrew Kim, who is a designer that made one of the very first viral case studies of Microsoft redesign. And he's been doing really great work since then, so I'm following him. And yeah, he's more of an industrial designer, but it doesn't have to be UI, right? Anders is asking, tell us about one project in your career that made a big impact on how you think about interface design. Well, I can't really name the project because of the NDAs, but I've done a huge project that was like 2,500 screens across multiple devices, and like it was even a version of it for the PlayStation. So just thinking in terms of all of those devices that you have to take into account and all of those different settings and different sizes of everything, because if you're viewing it on a TV, it has to look way different and it has to act way different. I think that was something that was the most I guess it was the most transformational in terms of really looking at the interface as something that's beyond all those phones, mobile phones. It's just a lot more. Okay, another question. Tips for connecting previous work experience and relevant soft skills to UX, UI on your resume and in a job interview after a bootcamp and course. Okay, so that's something that I plan to answer in another video, but to just give you a quick short answer is that people are looking at UI first and then they try to evaluate the case study. So you always need to start with a really good interface design and place it in some mock-ups for, you know, just that extra wow effect. And then add the case study under this, because if you don't have that nice visual at the top, usually at the top of the case study, most people are not gonna bother reading the whole thing. Okay, Owen is asking, are there any skills you think could be important in the future of UX professionals? For example, coding, working with data, graphic design, and other types of design? Well, I think that graphics design is gonna be still pretty important, because we all think of the future as in like voice interfaces or something, but you're not gonna use your voice to, you know, do everything in public space, because that would be awkward talking to your phone while everybody can hear you. So until we get like direct brain to computer connection, I think that the visuals are still gonna be a big thing. And in terms of the user experience, we actually know enough right now, or almost enough. We don't really have to invent new patterns and new paths. People are used to some specific things and they work pretty well. So to differentiate, I think visual design, graphic design is gonna be one thing that is still lacking, and at least for a couple more years is gonna be one of the more important parts. Salman is asking, how you're doing, brother? Well, I'm doing fine. I'm sitting at the beach, it's nice, sunny, so it's a perfect day. Real is asking, what do you predict about UI UX design industry after 10 to 15 years? So it's a little bit like I said before. I think that maybe in 10 to 15 years we'll have direct brain connections, so we won't really need interfaces anymore, because basically the computer connected to our head is going to be doing all the work without, you know, actually touching buttons. but I don't think it's gonna be that popular, kind of like Google Glass. So I think that we're still gonna have standard touch-based interfaces, possibly with some additional overlays like augmented reality and stuff like that, but we'll just have to wait and see, right? Okay, Roger is asking, which of your 2 books would you recommend first to a new UX designer that also has some basic HTML, CSS knowledge? If you already know HTML and CSS and you want to be like a designer slash developer, which is actually something that exists as a role and it's pretty important, I think I'd go with Front-End Unicorn because it has 1/4 of the book is actually about design and good practices, so it's like a very condensed version of designing user interfaces, but also you get a lot more knowledge about how to learn effectively, how to communicate, how to work with others, so a lot of very useful skills that you can use to, excel at your job, basically. Alex is asking, what do you think about design sprints as a way to get a group to design? Have you found other good processes or systems to get a design from a group of people? So we are usually working in very small groups at Hype4. Usually it's 1 designer per project. Sometimes we do something like a brainstorming session after some design is done, but we don't really do like a typical group work. And from my experiences at other companies, when we were doing that, design sprints are probably the best way to organize people that way. So I think design sprints are probably gonna stay with us a little bit longer. But even if not, then one of potential ideas here is to have everybody design independently, to just create even the same version of that same functionality by like 5 different people, and then do a brainstorming session on, how to combine those ideas into something good, but do that in high fidelity. So don't do like typical sessions of just scribbling on a whiteboard. Okay, Adrian is asking tips on how to become a remote UX UI designer. Well, that's pretty easy, Adrian, because if you are good at especially the UI part, because this is something people can see, they're gonna salivate all over your portfolio and it won't really matter where you're from. They'll just want to hire you. Okay, and yeah, here's another one. What motivates you to stay in design career and how to do more in less time? I'm not quite sure what motivates me. Recently, I think it's helping people. It's kind of like after 20 plus years of doing this, I don't really get as much pleasure from just doing a design, maybe in some rare cases. But being able to give back to the community and actually hearing, like just yesterday I got news that one of the people that I was helping got a job that she really wanted to get, and that email made me super happy for the entire day. So I think that this kind of thing is what's driving me right now, and at the start it was probably fast cars, money and whatever. But right now it's definitely just being able to make a positive change in the world. Yeah, it sounds kind of cliche, but yeah, I think that's it. And how to do more in less time? Well, learn to do more in general, and then if you practice doing more, it's gonna be taking you less time every time you try it. So it's basically just continuation. And we're getting a bit of a wind here, so hopefully that's not gonna be distorting everything. Okay, Critty is asking, please share your tips on how to improve design skill, design thinking skill, and communication skill for a junior designer who is starting their career. Well, as with everything, if you want to improve, you need to be doing it more. So I think that first of all, the general design skill is something that if you're just doing a course or a bootcamp or a class, you should do a lot more portfolio projects, and that way you will just improve your design skills. And then communication skills, this is something that you can try to improve by writing a lot. So just write articles on your journey, because you don't have to be an expert to write on Medium like in the UX publications. There are publications for junior designers as well where they can share their stuff. So things like how they approach something as a junior designer and how it worked. So you can still share, and then basically if you write one article a day, I think that you'll learn to communicate ideas better, because this is basically it. Writing is just the best way to learn to communicate. Okay, Soul Rebel is asking, what techniques do you use and recommend for designing UI that is not only beautiful and functional, but also user-friendly for those who have accessibility issues or challenges? Yeah, that's a tough one, because if we are gonna do AAA accessibility in a design, it's usually gonna be pretty jarring because the contrast is gonna be super high. So actually I would go the unpopular route of having a special version of the product for like the AAA, and then using AA as a standard for the rest of the interface. So that way people with special needs are catered to, and everybody else actually has something that is not as contrasty, because it can be pretty stressful for your eyes to look at super high contrast. Yeah, just to kind of find the balance between the two. And I think that visuals are something that you start with just having like a vision in your head on how it's gonna look like, and then after you're done with the first iteration, you can then just check it with the contrast checkers and see where they're at, and then just tweak it to adjust it. But don't really start doing a design with the contrasts in mind right away, because it can limit kind of the creativity and the ideas that you have. You just always apply it at the end of the design project, and then basically make sure that it's going to be accessible, but make it beautiful first and accessible second. Of course, all before release. Okay, next question. Can you give a minimum suggestion to be a decent UI UX designer? Yeah, do a lot of design. Okay, Juan is asking, what's a great observation that you can do to Google in the UX UI lineups that they apply to their products, and what can they do to fix them? I'm asking this because I use YouTube Music and it has some tiny details on the UI that breaks the entire UX. Well, with bigger corporations, the problem is that they really need to adhere to their design systems, and they don't really have much wiggle room in there. So if it was like a smaller startup, I would suggest them to just redesign it and make it better. But since it's Google, I don't really think they can do a lot about this, because they would have to like modify the entire material design system, and that's not really gonna happen anytime soon. So yeah, I would just say support smaller startups, I guess, because that's gonna be a way to be able to experience UIs that are outside of the norm and outside of the boring a little bit. Like Clubhouse is a good example of a startup doing something, and also in the interface they're doing it in like a pretty unusual way. It's atypical. A lot of the apps are now using very similar patterns, and they are breaking some of those patterns to stand out. Okay, another question from Ashish. Does UI UX designer have safe future and growth? I think for at least 10 more years it should be, and when that time passes and you'll have 10 years of experience, you can easily transition to the next big thing in design. Because whether we're gonna be using our brains to, work on things, there's still gonna be some form of audio or other brain type interface to work on. So all of that knowledge from the UI UX design is gonna be useful then as well. But for now, at least for 10 years, we're all gonna be fine. Okay, a question from Anton. I've had a usability testing of my music app prototype and have got some records of the screen with captured voice of me and my users. How do I analyze that kind of data? Well, first of all, you need to transcribe it, so you just need to write everything down, kind of like a play or a movie script. And then just gather all the answers from the respondents into a table, and then you analyze that. You just analyze data as in, don't listen to it and try to figure things out. Just have it in an Excel sheet or in like a table view, and then try to find patterns and find common grounds for that. Okay, a question from Manvi. Is it necessary for a UI designer to also gain UX skills for getting into a better paying job? And what is the path one should follow to get better in this area? If you're already a UI designer, that's really great, because this is a lot harder to learn. And that whole UX part, if you're critical and you have good logic skills, you should be able to learn enough even in this Google course that they're doing right now. So I think that if you have UI skills already, then just do a course like that, and that should be enough for you to get a better job. And one thing that you could also do is to showcase your UI portfolio by adding case studies with the design process, and you can add a lot of that after the fact. You can do competitive analysis of the design that you made, comparing it to other existing products, and then kind of make a bigger, larger portfolio because of that. Okay, a question from Martin. How you deal with client about hour rate or time used for project before start work? Sometimes it's hard to explain value in a short time to client versus the hour rate and time. And I don't really want to lose the client, but I don't want to work under my man-day rate. Yeah, this is really tough, but I think there are two kind of ways of going about this. One is to be so much faster at what you do, and this is kind of what I'm doing, that the hourly rate doesn't really matter that much, because in even like a logical time you'll be able to complete it much faster. But in like a real world scenario, you need to break it down. So you need to explain to them that this process is not just kind of moving this here and okay, I know everything, it's fine, it just takes me a few minutes. This is a process that requires a lot of thinking, and if they want a better product, that they need to actually give you that time, because it's not something that you can do super quickly. It's design, it's not art that you can just kind of get inspiration and then just start drawing. It needs to be thought out to like the smallest details. And what helps usually is to write a proposal of the time and effort that has a lot of different points, and it doesn't matter how precise they are, and it doesn't even matter what they say, because if a client sees a long list of stuff, it's easier for them to justify the price, because okay, I'm getting a lot of things for that money. It's kind of simple like that. Okay, a question from Harris. What advice would you give to someone from a developing country to be a successful designer at a big company like Google? Well, first of all, finish the course, then do a lot of extra work, a lot of extra designs. And yeah, after some time and after, having a larger portfolio, big companies are gonna be hiring. So they're always hiring. I really hate these people that are bringing loud music onto the beach. It's just kind of annoying. I'm just gonna wait them out. Okay, another question. What in your view is, in order to become a good UX UI designer, learn and become a good UI designer? Because if you're awesome at UI, you can become a good UX designer, researcher, writer, anything. Yeah, I think this is actually true. If you're good at UI, and well, you need to have that kind of logical thinking in your head. It needs to work that way. But if you're good at UI, becoming a UX designer is gonna be a little bit easier, because it's really not as difficult as most UX designer kind of portray it to be. And I think they do it because they are afraid that when people are gonna find out that UX is not really that difficult, it's gonna devalue their work. So yeah, maybe it's like a blocking tactic. But if you're good at UI, you're gonna be good at UX at some point as well, because they are basically part of the same whole. Okay, yeah, and a very similar question. I have only one question, that is it okay to learn UI design and not UX? Yeah, definitely, because in bigger companies and companies like Google, there are dedicated visual designers who don't really do a lot of the UX work. So if you plan to work for a bigger company, you don't really need to know UX. You get a wireframe and then you kind of make it look beautiful, and that's it. I think it is pretty limiting, so if you can, you should go with being a UX UI designer. But if you're an awesome visual artist and you want to do beautiful interfaces, you can still do that, and that should be okay. Okay, yeah, question from Justin. What are 3 pieces of advice you can give to new UX UI designers to stand out from the rest? Well, one way to stand out is to have a huge portfolio, because most people have like 1 or 2 projects. So if you have 50 or 60 daily UI challenges and a couple of case studies, you're standing out instantly. Another thing is to try to make unusual stuff, like make an Apple Watch app, because almost nobody's designing them in their portfolios. Make like a smart fridge app, or just anything, or make some animations. So just anything that is kind of out of the ordinary, because most people are gonna do like a very simple app with like a list view and a map view and whatever, a dashboard. But if you want to stand out, just do something that's different. And I think the third thing would be to show that you also understand the concepts and you want to explore them. And to do that, I think it's best to start writing, to start exploring writing short articles about your process and how you think about these things, and then publish them, because then when people go to your portfolio, they notice that you not only do the nice designs, but you also have like a good understanding of the industry as a whole, and that's really valuable. Okay, a question from Lalit. As we know, there are multiple divisions and people working on developing a product, and as they say, designers can design anything, but developer can't develop anything. So my question is, while making the product, who decides the features of the product? Well, usually it's somebody called the product owner, and if in a smaller company, it can be the CEO. But I think that right now for a designer to design something that developers can't really make is not really the case anymore. It used to be like that before, like, you know, the revolution of the design tools, but right now all of the shapes and all of the effects that you're doing on them can be created in code, so it's not really that relevant anymore. So yeah, but usually the person who decides is the product owner, the CEO, and sometimes the lead designer can also decide on some features as well. Okay, and I'm gonna wait out some pretty loud ladies here, and I'll be right back. Okay, a question from Genesis. Can we know your why? Why do you design? Why do you teach on YouTube? And why you created this book? What is your why? To get to that answer, I think we need to go back in time, because the reason I started doing design in the late 90s, it was 98 I think, was that I was playing computer games a lot, and I played Quake with my friends, and we wanted to have a website because it was kind of cool to have like a Team Quake website, and nobody knew how to make one, so I just taught myself, and then kind of the rest of it happened. So I'm doing design because I really liked video games basically, and right now I kind of like design as well. And why am I trying to teach people? I think that after 20 something years, it's the least I can do. And the book is one way for me to kind of monetize part of that knowledge, so I can actually devote more time to do the free stuff. Because if the book is selling well, then I have more time, and when I have more time, I can give more of that away for free. So that's why I'm also tutoring junior designers and helping them get their jobs, because I just can't do it because the book is selling pretty good. So it's all kind of like an interconnected web of things, and I really like it that way. Okay, how a user problem is solved in a UX process. Well, it needs to be defined, and then a solution needs to be found and then implemented, and then you test it if it really solves the problem. And if it does, then problem solved. And if it doesn't, then just go back to the drawing board. Simple. Okay, and the last question. Does the Google certification course get you a job without a degree? So you don't really need a degree to do this course and to get the certification, but I think that this certification is not going to be enough for you to get a job. So you need to do a lot of extra work, and you need to really like what you're doing. So if you're doing the certificate just to get a better paying job, then chances are you're not going to be able to finish it, because it can be pretty difficult. So you really need to love designs, you need to love making products, and you need to be really interested in it, and you need to read a lot more. So like, find good Medium articles and read them daily to look at this from different perspectives. And yeah, it's a good path to a job, but overall I think that many people underestimate the amount of work that they have to do to actually succeed in this. So hopefully that helps. Okay guys, this is the last of the questions, so now I'm just gonna scroll through my phone very quickly, and whenever it stops, that person is gonna win one copy of the book. Okay, and the copy of the book goes to James Kim. Congratulations. And that's it from me for today. Thanks for watching, and that's been like an unusual Q&A, but I really like doing things a little bit differently. So cheers from the beach. I'm just gonna relax a bit, and see you next time. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and all that. Cheers.